just keep, the big picture is, when you get to law school and you've been there a little while, you're gonna get it. You're gonna understand the probative nature of analytical. So look, all it's doing is measuring your ability to organize, manage, and solve. It's just 3 words, OMS, organize, manage, solve. Now, these words have particular meaning to me, so I want to break them down. So when I use the word organize, you're testing your ability to visualize, and then for most people, though not for everyone, it's to draw. That's all. You do a lot of drawing in law school. There's no way to overemphasize this. It's not a sufficient condition to be a trial attorney to be able to schedule witnesses. Are you with me? You've got to do more than that. But it is a necessary condition. It is absolutely necessary that I be able to schedule it. I didn't need my JD to do that. My JD had nothing to do with that. So, but all this is doing again, it's a big picture test. Part of my objection to the logic games monochord, a substantial part of my objection, is that it diminishes actually what you're being tested on. If you call it something else and you pretend it's something it's not, I guess that's not a big deal if whatever it wasn't important. But this actually is. Again, there is no doubt in my mind that in the actual construction of a case, of trying a case, this section is the most relevant of any of the sections. So if I'm talking about, and there's just no doubt in my mind, if I'm trying to go from disparate information, meaning just like a bunch of facts that are all over the place, and that's what you get, right? You get a bunch of facts all over the place, right? How do you go from these facts that are all over the place to say, no, I'm putting that guy in trial? And it's this process. So it's not so much, the logical reasoning once I get them, once I'm in a courtroom, right? If I'm preparing an appellate brief, that's dominant, it's not exclusive, but if I'm handling an appellate brief, that's mostly in there is logical reasoning. But if I'm orchestrating a trial, that's not logical reasoning. I'm not strengthening or weakening arguments. I'm not looking for. I'm orchestrating a trial. It's nuts and bolts. It's that. And so and maybe everybody doesn't have to do it to you do have to do it to be a trial attorney. It's fair to say that a very low percent of attorneys are trial attorneys. But to get through law school, this is all over it. I mean, you can wait now. You can either wait till you take civil procedure and then call me. Just say, son of a bitch. It's analytical. Or you can wait till you take torts, and then you can call me and say, son of a bitch. There are any number of classes that when I say a necessary condition now, is it somewhat clearer to you what it really means than maybe it was 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
It's really important. It's really, really critically important. There aren't that many building blocks that I think are necessary to do this, right? The primary building block is get attitudinal, right? Which is just these 4 categories up here: established facts, inferred facts, unknown facts, and facts in opposition. That is primary. No matter what you do in your life, that's there. Getting your feelings out of the way is primary. Just get them the fuck out of your way. I mean, they're fine to have. I mean, you know, they're just going to mess you up in this profession. And I don't know any lawyer on the planet who's effective, who is well, you guess, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Jim would know some. Legal Aid Society, there were some zealots, some people I would consider zealots, where it's like, really? I'm not sure they were effective in a courtroom, but they certainly were zealots, and they certainly practiced law.
I don't know that I'd call it a compliment.
I'm sorry?
I don't know that I'd call that a rave review of
Well, it wasn't meant to be at all. I said raving, I might adopt. A review on raving. But there weren't. Again, what I'm getting at primarily here, right, is that we are clinical. And there were exceptions. I won't go there. But if you're going to be successful at this, the probability, if there are no certainties, right? But the probability is you just need to be clinical to get that out of your way. With respect to analytical, it's this wonderful opportunity to learn what the test is actually testing, which is nothing that will appear in something called the Logic Games Bible. That isn't to say that couldn't help. You know, I'm certainly not saying it can't help. I'm saying even if it did help, it would do almost nothing to prepare you for law school, right? So even if it did help, why would any reasoning creature do that when there's an alternative way to approach this? And the alternative way is the way you're going to solve in law school. And that's what all these programs are about, right? Is I want you guys, when you get here, to be reasoning the way the people next to you are struggling to learn how to do this. Again, that first year, Tracy Norton, who runs the program with me down at Touro Law School, Tracy's the professor at Touro. Tracy's the key to Touro. And Tracy analogizes that first year, no matter where you go to law school, is as you read the books, you have to build shelves to put the books on. So it's not just reading the books, which you have to do, but it's the IRAP thing. You're going to be tested in a way you've never been tested before. So you have to learn how to reason this way simultaneously with the content of what you learn. So this is about why don't we learn to reason this way in advance and then just worry about content when you get to law school. So it's not logic games. It's right here. And the level of difficulty is, I think it's kind of straightforward. Because if I design something, again, the big picture is here. When the outcome is this: can you change information into intelligence? It has been designed for that, right? Somebody created what you're looking at, right? The person who created it is measuring your ability. That person is saying, I'm going to give you disparate information. And all disparate means it's not obviously connected, right? But I'm going to give you what you need to solve, but it's not obviously connected. And what I'm measuring your ability to do is, one, understand with precision the information I gave you. And that would go back to, they're doing the same thing in logical reasoning. If you don't understand with precision what the word sum means, you're going to have a tougher day than somebody who does. That's all it is. I mean, it's not all it is, but that's a lot of this, right? So here, I'm gonna give you the explicit information, right? Okay. But you may misinterpret what I've given you. You may misinterpret the word each. You may misinterpret the word only. So, not everybody collects the initial information equally fast or with equal validity. But it's way more than that. Which is can you take the explicit information that I've given you and weave it together into a mosaic? And it's been designed to weave into a mosaic. Again, I keep going back to this. My connection with analytical is, doesn't it kind of make sense to you that if you're trying a case and you have multiple witnesses you're going to, who are contributing to your case, you have multiple witnesses who contribute to it. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? But would it be further fair to say you have to have a theory of the case? Or don't I have to be able to explain to the jurors at the end of this what my theory was, because the defendant's not going to explain what the defendant did. The defendant's going to deny what the defendant did, generally, right? So, in the building of the theory, don't I get that through my witnesses? Doesn't the collective information I get give me the ability to come up to a theory? In other words, could you have testimony about the crime scene itself? Yeah. Talk to me. Yeah. But get how creative a process this is, right? So I have witnesses who are going to tell me about what the lighting conditions were at the corner of 3rd and 3rd in Mount Vernon. Is that enough?
No.
Would it be helpful to have witnesses who could describe maybe the defendant's prior conduct?
Yes.
Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Would it be helpful to have the police officer who took a statement from the defendants after the defendant's arrest? Would that be helpful? Yes. Talk to me.
Yes.
And do you get that from case to case, the weight, the power of that evidence will vary? Sometimes you'll get a statement from a defendant that is really inculpatory, right? Like, I did it. Sometimes you get a statement from a defendant that's really not helpful at all. Talk to me, do you get it?
Yes.
And so from case to case, and you have to build this theory. And the theory comes from, I have information about the crime scene. I have information about the defendant. Maybe I have information about prior conduct. Hopefully I have grand jury minutes. And the grand jury minutes are prior testimony. You gotta have a bunch of information. Talk to me. Mm-hmm. And I have to come up with the theory because I have to persuade. With me? And your guys are who I would be persuading, because you're coming in and you're saying, okay, convince me. You want evidence. Do you think a given case could be won or lost? Do you think a given case with the same evidence available could be won or lost?
Yes. Yes.
And so doesn't it follow from that how you construct your case may be important to the outcome of your case?
Absolutely.
You guys get it? Anybody need Aristotle here? Because I'm talking about analytical reasoning. So what that's got to do with something called logic, and I don't have a fucking clue. But you with me? It's really, it's such a waste. So then would it be important for you in constructing your case to build it around some witnesses that are more central perhaps than other witnesses? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So not every witness's testimony gets equal weight as you build the case. Yes?
Yeah.
And would it be further fair to say that sometimes it's the aggregation of the testimony? In other words, it's taking what, so I'm trying to establish the defendant's presence at a scene, right? So let's say I'm trying to establish the defendant was present. Let's say the crime took place at 9 p.m. Would it be helpful if I were able to authoritatively establish that defendant was not present between 7 and 8 p.m.? But he wasn't. If I'm claiming the defendant was present at 9 p.m., right, and only at 9 p.m.,
Oh, yes.
okay? Would it be helpful to establish that, because the crime took place at 9, so when do I want the defendant at that crime scene?
9.
Okay, so yes, if I put him there at 8, you put him there, but how about if I'm saying the defendant was there, if I had somebody testify that the defendant was not there at between 7 and 8, and somebody else who hadn't spoken to that witness was able to say the defendant was not there between 10 and 11, would it be fair to say I've excluded 2 time frames?
Yes.
where might the defendant claim I was there, but I was not there at the time you're saying, because the crime took place at 9. You get? If I then had a third witness who said, son of a bitch, I can't tell you the time because, I wasn't paying, that's not what I do. I don't, I don't pay much attention to that. But this I can tell you, that guy was there that evening, and I can tell you it wasn't, it wasn't midnight, and it wasn't early in the evening, but, I can't really tell you. By putting those 3 people together, do you make it somewhat more likely that the defendant, if you can establish the defendant was there during the time frame between 9 and 10? You're not proving it, you're just making it somewhat talk to me.
Possibilities,
Yeah. Isn't it more possible now than before I put those witnesses on the stand?
yeah.
That's not my case. It's not the entirety of my case. But what I'm getting to you, to get in the real world, you see the difference? The information I got came from one witness, right? Independent information, which that witness didn't have, came from a second witness. Then from a third witness who had no contact with the other 2 witnesses. Do you get it? Can you do that? Because it doesn't matter what field you're in. It doesn't matter what field of law you're in, right? If you can do that, you can do this for a living. But not out of anger, right? Not out of indignation. Out of evidence. So if that's what they were doing, would you be more motivated to try to understand analytical reasoning? Yeah, that's what they're doing. And I don't know who can communicate that to you who hasn't practiced law. You know what I'm saying? I don't. What I don't get is how can someone, the purpose of the test, right, is do you think like a lawyer? Right? How do you think like a lawyer without being a lawyer? But you could do it. You could do it naturally. You could do it. But how would you then explain it? Because you never learned it. You just did it. So, so that's where they're going with this. It's a terribly important section. It's terribly important in law school. And you get this doesn't change. Aren't you going to have to make choices when you prepare for the bar exam? Like, you're not going to know what's on it. Don't you have to make choices about what you're going to drill down on? And doesn't that, there gets to be a pretty elaborate decision. What did you do well in school on? What shouldn't you do well in school on, right? But if you were obsessed, you didn't do well in admiralty law. And you're obsessing, I didn't do well in admiralty law. So now you start to spend hours preparing for admiralty law. And what's not going to be on the bar exam?
Admiralty law?
Yeah, but you get, that thing of fear, right? What reason guides the emotions. Reason should guide the emotions, right? So we feel what we feel, right? The purpose of reason is to take what we feel and make sense of it. So when I'm angry, it may not make a whole lot of sense to throw a glass at someone. It might feel right. My anger might be quite pleased. Yeah, I'm going to throw a fucking glass at you. Well, but do you get? It's this. What integrates our feelings and comes out with reason. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is I'm going to big picture. Peter works for the LSAC, right? No, there's not enough money, too late in life. Right? But what am I going to do? I'm going to create analogies to what I've done. So, I want you to organize, because law school students who organize will be more successful generally, right? Than law school students who don't organize. Have you met people in your life who have different organizational skills? But a pretty wide range, right? Are people who get nervous, people who get disabled by anxiety, probably not going to be really good at organizing. But people who only organize, people who never want to leave their fur-lined rut, right? I'm going to organize, and then I'm going to organize, and I'm going to organize, and I'm going to organize, and then you die. What was the point of that, right? But you get, you're in the business where you first you organize, okay, I'm done. Now I have to manage witnesses. You say, well, what does manage mean? Well, manage means my organization is I've had all these witnesses in. And I have my little, I don't have little piles, here are my civilians, here, it's all going to be organized, which naturally I'm not real inclined to do, but professionally I absolutely can do. But now I have to take that and weave the mosaic, you get it? And that without which none of this matters. You got to be able to weave the mosaic, which means you have to be able to identify your theory of the case. You have to be identified. It's really cool. Because if you can identify the evidence that you were given that was intended to build the case, you're going to do really well in analytical. What has that got to do with formal logic? If you're oblivious to that, then I don't know how you do well in this, other than just being naturally gifted to solve it. Okay. So, in terms of making things more or less difficult, for most of us, not all of us, people who are very gifted in analytical don't have to draw it. They're not a significant percent, but it's there. You get people who are very abstract people can do all this in their mind. Well, yeah, but they're going to live hollow and desperate empty lives. I mean, there's consolation. But you don't want to try to be someone you're not. And all that means is, because I'm not that person, I'm people, right? But that person has to be in my milieu at some time in the future, right? The test is not my milieu. So if I want to make this hard, if I don't allow you to draw it, you're screwed unless you're the geek, right? Okay. So would it be fair to infer that when you look at the hypotheticals on the test, and you can readily draw the first one, you can readily draw the second one, you can readily draw the third one, and you don't have a clue what the fourth one is what should look like, is it fair to say the level of difficulty attached to the fourth one is probably higher? Okay. Well, you're going to have a plan. You're going to have a plan going in there. How many am I going to do? How much time am I going to take? So that's one thing, is can I draw the damn thing? Now you have to manage it. So those are those variables, right? So let me ask you, could I give you variables that you really understand? In other words, if I say to you, L comes before O and is separated by exactly 2 positions, would everybody be able to draw that?
Yes.
So let's say we had 7, right? So you had 7 positions, right? And I say L comes before O, and they're separated by exactly 2 positions. So do you need Aristotle to figure out that's either 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, yes?
Yes.
And you're going to practice this, right? So it's unfamiliar to everybody, but it becomes familiar with practice. Now, what about this? What if I say L and O are separated by exactly 2 positions? Have I said the same thing?
No.
Have I made it more or less difficult to manage?
More.
More difficult. You see it? Or because I'm not giving you the order now, right? So now you can still do 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, but you don't know which is which. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So again, if I want to increase the difficulty, what I do is I make the variables I give you themselves difficult to understand and comprehend. And in difficult, you can't put the peg in the hole because there are 2 pegs that can go in the hole. So the general principle is, and we'll practice this right now. When you see a hypothetical that you're comfortable, you can draw, right? And you look at the constraints, which we'll talk about, and you say, no, I got it. I understand what's right or wrong. Then you're on the road generally to success. Where either of those comes apart, where you look at it and you say, I don't have a clue how to draw this, or you say, no, I can draw it, but they've got constraints there that I don't know what to do with them. That's going to be for failure. That's going to be designed for failure. So you don't, now, having said that, they've got to, look, I infer, so I could be wrong here, right? I infer based on what I know, that work with me so that your inference is my inference, right? So we know as a fact that the median score is 58. Now you can check that with the LSAC, but that's the median score, so that's a fact. I'm going to infer the following from that fact. I'm going to infer that each of the 3 sections mimics that percentage. That is to say, if you're giving me a test, we'll round up to 60, right? I'm going to infer a likelihood that if you want a total score of 60, you probably want to look for 60% of each section as being the median. Meaning you wouldn't, I don't think you'd be looking for, well, I expect you to get 90% of one section and 30% of another, right? I'm kind of thinking, you put these 3 sections on here, I infer for a reason, right? And I further infer that if 60% is the median, it roughly should apply to each section. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, because again, we're just following this pathway. Right? We're just taking information and we're moving it to intelligence so that you have an exam plan. Okay. So then analytical, a representative test taker should get 23 times 0.6 if there are 23 questions. So if we're looking like what is the median on this section? And that would make the median 14. Plus, and you say plus or minus 2. It's certainly not going to be plus 2. So does that seem reasonable that the median test score in this section is going to be at or about, say, 14? Talk to me, come on. And you understand my reasoning. And you understand my reasoning could be flawed. Oh, go figure. But I'm at the front of the room, that can't happen. Schmucks. So does it make sense to you? Then doesn't that allow you to create benchmarks? Right? Because now you know what you're competing against, right? So if you were to get a 14 in analytical, you'd be on path to go to law school, yes? If you got a 12, you'd be looking to pick up, if you were just trying to get in, right? Watch the video. How do I get my ass into law school? It's scripted. It'll be better after you've had something to drink. No, but it's not, it's okay to watch it with a drink. But it really is, this is such a down-to-earth clinical thing, all right? So I'm saying I have to design the test. Peter, now the evil Peter, right? At the LSAC, I have to design it so the median score is going to be 14. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. But unlike logical reasoning, it's not just one question, right? It's one hypothetical and then 5, 6, or 7 questions, right? So in a representative, of the exams they've released, where they put the data out, you find on a given hypothetical, it'll go 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, meaning level of difficulty. Next one will go 1, 4, 4, 3, 5. Next one will go 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, right? And then the last one will be 1, 5, 5, 5, 4. That's a reasonable expectation. Doesn't that kind of make sense if what the writer is trying to do is produce a 14, right? Because then you're going to get, say, 11 of the 14 from the 2 hypotheticals that are approachable. And then somebody's just, basically you're going to be guessing what you don't understand. Okay. So what I'm saying is, those 2, you're going to see how to draw them, you're going to know you can manage them, and it's going to be fine. But you don't need me. You'll be fine. I'm going to go home now. And then we'll do some examples now. And you